What's going on, everybody? Aaron Zams out here from firerescuefitness.com on the Fire Rescue Athlete Podcast. Today, I got a very special episode. We're going to talk about functional training. What? What is it? Yep. What is functional training for first responders and firefighters, EMTs, and medics? And how can you change some of your workouts, change some of your exercises to make them more functional? Stay tuned.
You are listening to the Fire Rescue Athlete Podcast with your host, Aaron Zamzow.
Hey, everybody. Again, Aaron Zamzow, Fire Rescue Fitness with the Fire Rescue Athlete Podcast here. Thanks for listening. Before I got involved in the fire service, I trained with some professional athletes from the NHL, NFL, NBA. I worked with a lot of different clients and athletes, through some very large health clubs out. I used to be in Minneapolis. I worked at Northwest Athletic Clubs. I also did some studies at the University of Minnesota under some professors there. And we worked with a lot of hockey players, and that worked my way into working with professional athletes. So when I finally got the fire service, I kind of realized that the way that I trained traditionally, I was training like a bodybuilder at that time. I was doing a lot of body part training, and when I went through my first academy, I realized, man, this isn't the most effective way, because people were basically beating my butt on the fire ground because they were training differently, or because they had more physical jobs. Um, and so I went back to the drawing board and I looked at really what is the function of a firefighter? What's the function of an EMT? What do we need to be able to do? When I worked with those athletes, I broke down their position. So if it was a free safety or someone in the NFL that needed to be fast and quick on that first step, we developed a program that helped them do that and perform better. When I worked with some soccer players that were semi-pro, we worked on, obviously cardio, but we also worked on their agility. And even with hockey, one of the things we started to really work on was upper body strength. Just when they were up on the boards, they were finding themselves being more successful. So my point here being is, when you look at a first responder, when you look at that firefighter, the EMT medic, what does functional mean? Well, if you break down what we do on a daily basis, and let me even go back a little bit further, there's so many definitions of what really functional training is. I think that term is really thrown out. Just it's one of those things that it's kind of like it's the thing to talk about right now in the fire service, and it has been for the last 15 years. But when you break it down, what functional training really is, um, it's being able to um, perform your job better by training for it. And I guess the example that I'll use here is, when you break down what we do, right? Like, um, and I should go back and say Mayo Clinic actually has a great, very, very, very good description and definition of it. They define functional training as training the body for activities performed in daily life. Right. So what is our daily life as a firefighter, EMT, and medic? And I know right now you're snickering and the comments are coming to your head about, oh, we do sit in the recliners or whatnot. Well, we do that possibly sometimes, but when you break down what do we need to be physically ready for functionally, we lift, crawl, we carry, we pull, hoist, drag, climb. We do some sledging work or slamming work, um, and all of that requires core movement, right? None of that isolates anything. A lot of the stuff that we do through what's called the transverse plane, where we're twisting, right? Carrying somebody, moving a patient, carrying equipment, and twisting. And that's where a lot of injuries come. So when you break down functionally and you break down what I like to say, our playing field as first responders, it's vast. We have to train for a lot of different things. One shift you could be on a roof, venting a roof, forcing a door, dragging a patient, doing compressions, all these things in one shift. And then when you add on top of carrying gear, stepping up into the rigs, which, a lot of times I think we take for granted, but if you're not flexible and mobile, your stepping into the rig has to come from somewhere. Most times it comes from low back and hips and your knees stepping off of that rig, which you see, okay, well, we heard a lot of low backs. We got a lot of knee injuries. Carrying stuff, lifting stuff overhead, we get a lot of shoulder injuries in the fire service. So breaking down the motions, that lifting, crawling, carrying, pulling, hoisting, dragging, climbing, slamming, and then training to be better at those motions. That's what functional training is. It's training for the activities we perform in our daily life. And I like to even go and break functional training down a little bit further when it comes to the context of workouts. And this is what I basically create FRF workouts on. It's the premise that our workouts should do three things for us. First, they should improve our performance. Second, they should reduce our chances of injuries. And third, they should prolong our careers. And so and I had a discussion about a leg press. Okay. A fixed plane leg press. Now, someone's going to say, well, it's going to improve your leg strength. And I will say 100% you are correct. And I'm not saying this is a bad exercise, but what's more functional exercise is a deadlift with dumbbells because we're constantly picking people, things, equipment up off the ground, and sometimes even I think what's even more functional to train during your workouts is a one-arm dumbbell deadlift because we're lifting things usually with one arm, heavy bag, heavy piece of equipment. And those are things that you got to start integrating into your workout. So, for instance, if you're going to do that leg press, I'm fine with that. But then right after that, why don't you burn out your legs and your core and your upper back with some dumbbell deadlifts? I would just prefer to do the dumbbell deadlifts, but I know how some people are and they like oh, I want to get that big press in there. Now, the other thing going back to a lot of times with leg press, the reason why I don't think they're functional is because you're never really doing that motion on the fire ground. You're never, on your back pressing weight straight, just in the same plane, straight weight off of you. And, we could go around in circles about, okay, well, it helps build strength, but it does, but only in one plane of motion. Right. So what I like to think about is when you want to be more functional, you train in all the different planes of motion: forward, side, up, down, turning, twisting. So you're getting those different movement patterns into your workout programs because we need all those different movement patterns on the fire ground. And let's look at like a military press too. So a shoulder press. A lot of times people do a fixed bar or a Smith press machine over their heads. This one I'm going to tell you stop doing because it's really bad on the shoulders and neck. A much better alternative would be a dumbbell press, just because you have to work balance within each arm, number one. And really, to take it a step further, this is my point. A seated dumbbell press is okay, right? Like we just talked about, it's going to build some upper body strength in the shoulders. But is it functional? Are you ever sitting on the ground or sitting on your butt and doing that motion? No, you're not. And if you are, please comment, be like, hey, you're wrong. I did it on this day in 1974, whatever. Okay. But my point being is what's a much more functional exercise is to do that shoulder press from a standing position. Because a lot of times we're hoisting things, we're grabbing things off the top shelf of the rig in a standing position. So by training that way, changing your stances, changing from fixed bar to dumbbells, you're getting more functional. I think dumbbells, I think standing positions, even staggered stance positions, like one-arm dumbbell, don't put your hand or your knee on the damn bench. It's not as functional as keeping a wide base and doing that pull with one arm with both feet on the ground. Same thing with I like a regular prisoner squat without weight. And why I think that's functional is a prisoner squat can help with mobility. It helps us get to the floor better. It helps us train our bodies to get to the floor better. It also works on postural muscles. The other part about what I'm seeing in the fire service and what I see actually everywhere is, we're all in with our faces in our phones. And what's happening is our heads are drawing forward or our necks are drawing forward. Now, in the fire service, with that forward head tilt, and then you got a helmet on top, you're going to start to see that we're going to have neck injuries and high shoulder injuries because of that. So, one of the exercises I like to incorporate in FRF workouts as a warm up is a prisoner squat, where your arms are on your head, your elbows are back, and you're forced to really work good posture on your upper back and work mobility of the lower body at the same time. I believe anything that improves your mobility is functional for us because of the way that we need to move in all the different planes of motion. That's functional. Core movements, because every movement we do on the fire ground is functional. Recovery is functional for us because we have to do it shift after shift after shift for an entire career of 25 to 30 years. I know when you're looking at it, you're like, man, okay, I guess I see what you're saying, but go back to the leg press thing. If you're fixated on that, let's give you another example, a bench press. A lot of people do it. A lot of firehouses have bench press machines. Not saying don't do it. I'm just asking, is there a better way? Is there a more functional exercise? Are you ever doing that motion on the fire ground? Um, and I've been in seminars all over the country, and we've had great discussions on this. And I don't mind if you're doing it that way. If you want to do a bench press, great. But do mobility work for your shoulders to make sure that you're not going to be so far forward that when you reach back to put your SCBA on, you pop your shoulder. So add mobility to that workout that you're doing the bench press in. I think a better alternative to bench press is alternating arm dumbbell presses, because you can really feel your core work. It forces your shoulders to stabilize, and it forces you to really work balance, and you'll get some oblique work, which goes back to that transverse plane where we're twisting. Anything that works the obliques is great. So as I keep going on and break down different exercises, my point here is that I think that some exercise is great. Yeah, I think back in the day when we were just starting to promote people in the fire service to start working out, yeah, any motion is good. But what I want you to do is dig a little bit deeper. Think about what you're doing in your workouts, and is it helping you perform better? Is it helping you reduce injuries? I think that's where the real the the challenge is. Like a bench press, I think would help you perform better. Yeah. But I don't know, if you don't incorporate those other things of mobility in the shoulders, if it's actually helping you reduce injuries. Power lifters, I have this conversation all the time. We got a lot of people in the fire service like to lift heavy. I have no problem with that. But are you focusing on cardio and intervals? Can you burn the bottle faster than anybody else on your crew? So how is that helping you really improve your performance? Because that's the other aspect of this. You might be able to lift a car, but if you can't, climb up the stairs without going through a bottle, in a high rise situation, you're not helping your crew. So, what functional training, going back to my original point, is incorporating in training exercises, workouts that improve performance, reduce injuries, and prolong your career. And hopefully they do all of those things, not just one. That's really what FRF is based on. That's what our workouts are based on. That's what exercises I like to incorporate. They're based on those things. And to make it more functional means you perform better on that fire ground, and you're not going to get that shoulder tweak. And then, when you retire 25 years from now, you're not beat to all hell. So there we go. I can go on for hours about functional training. I have been doing some posts about functional exercises and why I think they are functional. I'm going to be doing one a month. I have a couple of them posted. I'm going to leave a link to the very first one. First one is the shoulder press, where to be more functional, start using dumbbells, go from a standing position. One of the things that I've even incorporated in with our recruits is I'll have them grab a plate weight, press it up overhead, and then walk a couple steps. Because when you hoist that ladder, that's what you're doing. Arms up straight, walking, and making sure that your core is stable enough to get you, to where you want to go with that ladder. These are great additions. One arm row is, don't do it with your knee on the bench. When you're talking about bench pressing, try to alternating arm dumbbell presses. Even with bicep curls, I like to do what's called Captain Morgan curls. I know It's funny, but it's where your leg is up on a bench and you're working balance a little bit more. All these things transfer to improving performance, reducing injuries, and prolonging career. So I think you get where I'm going with functional training. I'd love to hear what you think of this. I'd love to hear if you got exercises you're like, well, is this functional or what can I do different? You can always reach me, firerescuefitness.com. If you go to the contact me, that goes right to me or to my dog, Tessa. She's really bad at answering, so it falls all on my lap. That's one way. Facebook, we have a Fire Rescue Fitness Facebook page. Those messages go to me. Also, it's just me here, folks. I'm trying to help 100,000 first responders in the next couple of years improve their performance, reduce their injuries, and prolong their career. So let me know how I can help you. Thanks for listening. I hope you think I'm either on something or onto something, but stay safe, everybody, and get FRF.
Thank you for listening to the Fire Rescue Athlete Podcast with your host, Aaron Zamzow. Please tune in again soon for more fitness tips for fire rescue athletes.